The idea of approaching women during the day can be a little scary and intimidating at first. But actually, it turns out that a day game, approaching women during the day, can be one of the easiest ways to meet and attract women and get them out on dates. But what I'm seeing and hearing more and more from my comments on my YouTube and feedback from new clients that I bring on board is guys are getting more and more concerned about being penalized or punished for approaching women in public, especially given that the feminist movement is becoming increasingly vocal, hysterical, and punitive than ever before. So today I want to talk about why approaching women during the day or day game is still a really great strategy, but you just have to make sure that you avoid a couple of mistakes that have previously landed men in hot water. Keep watching to find out more. So I'm making this video in direct response to a media event that happened yesterday and is still kind of following on today. Basically in Sydney, a bunch of guys doing a pickup course with someone, not with us, but someone, was in a library in Sydney in the city, and they were approaching women there, and the library was getting really upset. The bookstore was getting really upset, and they posted on their public feed asking this dating coaching company not to approach women in their company. And as you can imagine, women got really upset. Women have a right to go into stores without being harassed. Don't harass women. This kind of flurried out of control. And yes, as always, when there are incidents around this kind of women's rights stuff, it explodes and it becomes this huge, massive deal that it doesn't have to be. But before you go and say, see, Damien, this is a perfect example of how women are going out and about trying to stop men from doing anything. We're not going to be able to talk to women ever. We'll have to get invitations from every woman or we'll go to jail for social rape. No. When you look closer at stories like this when they burst, there's more to it. See, what actually happened, and this is why I believe that women have, at least the original woman who made a complaint, had a very valid point for complaining, which was she wasn't just approached by one man. She was approached by a guy in a bookstore. That's fine. And then he walked away back to a group of friends, and then another guy from that group went and talked to her. And then she rejected him. He went back to the guys, and then another guy came up and approached her. And meanwhile, all the guys are standing around watching her, right? Watching what's going on. You can imagine that she doesn't know this is a dating coaching business. She doesn't know what's going on. She just sees a group of men randomly going up and repeatedly talking to her and pestering her, even though she's sort of rejecting them. You can imagine how that feels for a woman, that can feel a little creepy and a little bit unsafe. She's got a right not to want to experience that. And I find that when I look closely at a lot of these cases that come up where women complain about dating coaches or things that students of dating coaches have done and things like that, or just men in general learning pickup, when you look at the actual incidents that are brought up into the media, there are incidents that, you know what, women have a right to complain about that specific thing, but then it gets blown up. And that's, I think I want to talk a little bit about this. When is and isn't things okay when it comes to approaching women? So the very first thing I did yesterday was I convened a bit of a chat with my coaches, and I talked to them and I said, look, we've been coaching for like 11 years now, and we've never had a woman complain about us or our clients. Why? Why have we never had this happen to us? And yet we see in the media all the time other guys copying a lot of crap from the media, right? We've always had the media on our side, knock on wood. We've always been lucky with that because we do something differently. But what is it that we do differently? Well, as it turns out, mindset is critically important when it comes to approaching women and how women are going to positively or negatively react to you. As it turns out, and I talked to my coaches, they were saying to me, no, Damien, really, all the women they're talking to are walking away happy. They're excited and they're either happy just because they got a compliment even if they didn't like the guy, or they're happy because they met a guy they liked, right? They're never walking away feeling creeped out because that's what the coach is looking closely for, right? How creeped out are these women? Are we doing a good or a bad job? And mindset's huge. You see, what tends to happen a lot, so a lot of guys who are getting into this day game, daytime approaching stuff, either from what they've read or with their coaches, what they do is they want to minimize the fear and the pain of rejection. And so what they do is they form a mob mentality, like a pack mentality. A group of guys get together and they start to shit talk each other. They start to get real cocky in their comments to each other. They whip themselves up into like a hyper-masculinized, hyper-sexualized frenzy, right? Because when you're in that space, you don't focus on the fear of rejection as much, right? Because you're all full of bravado and cocky talk and right? And that really helps with the fear of rejection. And the other thing that is really common to do is men start to focus on women as pawns on a chessboard and not as human beings. And that really helps to minimize the pain of rejection as well. Now, I'm not saying this to judge guys who do this, because I've been guilty of this in my past as well. And I think that any woman who wants to judge men for doing this, like just judge guys, go, how could guys do that? What a horrible way to behave towards women. Well, I think they forget their female privilege. Female privilege is never having to deal with rejection like men do. I think any woman who wants to judge a man for resorting to strategies like that to deal with their insecurities about rejection and the pain of rejection should go up and get openly rejected in public by 10 men they really like in a row. If women will do that and then see how they respond to the rejection, because rejection is way harder to deal with than you think in reality. I've worked with women who actually wanted to go and try approaching guys in the street and stuff. And after they get rejected a couple of times, they all vocalize, wow, I had no idea how harsh getting rejection feels in reality. So women really don't have to deal with that on a day-to-day basis. So deal with that first and then judge. Myself, I have had to deal with this. And I'll tell you this right now, these strategies, while they help to minimize the fear of rejection, they are what causes a lot of the problems in the media. They are what causes a lot of rejection that you're still getting. So you're feeling less worried, but you're approaching, but you're still getting rejected a lot. Why? Well, first of all, let's go with the obvious. A lot of guys who want to learn day game and daytime approaching, they're usually, or often, have lower social calibration. They've got less social experience, right? So if you take a guy with low social calibration and you add in cockiness, bravado, and tons of hypersexualized masculinity in there, what are you going to get? You're going to get lots of really creepy, uncalibrated things being said that are going to like either scare or creep women the hell out. And that's going to happen. And women on the street, I agree. Women deserve to say, hey, I don't want to feel creeped out by guys. I don't want to feel in danger, because you got to remember, men are taller than women. And when you're getting men whipped up into this cocky thing and they're like I feel like I'm being a feminist when I say dehumanizing women. I just mean taking away the humanity to make it easier to do the approach. When men do that, the whole approach feels different to a woman, right? Because all of a sudden you get this man who's being much more aggressive than he normally would be. So he's blocking her path, not letting her work any further. He's not taking no for an answer. He is talking at her, not to her. So there's not really a human connection dialogue occurring. It's more just blurting out lines, trying to get stuff out. And it feels very fake and very, uncomfortable. And women have a right not to want to feel, I think uncomfortable is fine, because you know what, men who are uncalibrated are going to always be a little bit uncomfortable. But women have a right not to want to feel creeped out by guys saying some of this weird stuff to them and being hypersexual to them during the day. I think that's a pretty fair request. And, at risk of sounding like I'm a little bit feminist, because I'm really not. Because on the flip side, I think women need to adult up and also accept the fact that men have the right to go and talk to them. Men have the right to try to self-improve. There is a huge female privilege going on that women don't really have to learn social skills the way men do, right? Men really have to learn this stuff, usually later on in life. And there is no way to learn that if we're not allowed to just walk up to people and talk to them in public. So that is also a man's right. And I think that we as men learning this stuff, we need to listen to what women are saying, at least the sensible part of what goes on. Because I find what happens with women's rights stuff is something sensible is said, and then media takes hyperbole to the extreme. But if you listen to the sensible nugget there, that's fair. Because as I said, pretty much every case of women complaining is men actually doing something creepy and weird. It's not just men approaching on the street that's the issue. It's the really hyper forceful stuff that's the huge problem. I mean, I've been in the dating coaching industry for 15 years. I've run School of Attraction for 11. And I can honestly tell you that especially during the day, the more genuine, down-to-earth conversations are the most powerful. And especially during the day, you don't have to be confident. In fact, being too confident hurts you. If I approach women during the day, I actually have to wind it back and I have to search for any little insecurity or uncomfortableness that's inside to bring that up to the surface. Because if I approach during the day and I'm super confident, women don't trust me. It feels uncomfortable for them. If I approach women and I'm a little bit nervous and I'm a little bit more shy, all of a sudden they're much more open to talking to me. You don't need that stuff. They're looking for genuineness. And when you bring that and you actually listen to them and talk to them, you don't need to be super crazy funny. You don't need to be super crazy cocky. You don't need any of that stuff that so many pickup artists are telling you to do. It's really not necessary during the day. So yeah, I mean, I've seen that, and I've been around for a long time, so I see these trends. So for those of you who are watching, I don't know, bear that in mind. If you just approach women and you're just your genuine self talking, trying to have a conversation, you're just not going to run into problems, right? It's when you play games, play head games, try to be cocky, try to do all this kind of stuff, especially during the day. It can work a bit better at night, but during the daytimes, doing that's going to land you in more trouble than not, you know? And I know that there are a lot of fancy videos on YouTube. YouTube's starting to take them down, but there used to be lots of videos of guys doing all these crazy, look at what I can do during the day. Now, they do that because it makes for great viewing and gets a lot of views, but it's not the best way to approach women. So, you know, be a little bit mindful of that. And if you do that, you are not going to run into troubles with women, because most of the time women appreciate being approached as long as it's done in an appropriate way. So yeah, don't get too hyped up by what's going on in the media. Look at the actual facts of what's going on. You'll be surprised. It's usually just the creepy stuff women are really not wanting, and I think that's totally legit. So that's what I got to say. What did you think about today's video? You know, let me know in the comments below. It's just one of those areas where I think guys can get really upset at me if they feel like I'm encroaching upon their rights to approach women however they like. But yeah, there's always two sides to the debate. There is the women's side and the men's side, and you've got to look at both a little bit. I'd love to hear from you either way. I'm Damien. If you love my channel, don't forget to subscribe. If you want to see some more of my videos, maybe some more actual approaching techniques, look over here on the side as well. I'm Damien. Have a fantastic week. I look forward to seeing you in my future videos.